Hello, and welcome to this channel. Today, we are going to talk about America, the country that shaped the world. Before we start, I just want to let you know that my editing software recently decided to stop working for no reason, and I had to switch to a new one with like 2 days left until uploading this video. So, it might look a little different than usual. Okay, now let's get started. The United States of America is a massive country full of great cities, beautiful nature, and wonderful people. But it wasn't always this way. In the beginning, there were only 13 small colonies inhabited by European settlers, and the journey from these small colonies to becoming a superpower was epic. In this video, we will cover the beginnings of the U.S., when it was just 13 small colonies, its growth throughout the 1800s. How it became a world power in the early 1900s, and finally what happened in the late 1900s that made the U.S. the richest country in the world. At the end, we will also talk about some problems that the U.S. has today. So be sure to watch until the end. The first European country to establish colonies in North America was Spain. They did so in the 1500s, but they didn't really have much success because most of their colonies were in the south, where there were just vast, inhospitable swamps. Meanwhile, the northern part of the continent was controlled by the Dutch and French. But both of them were kicked out during the 7 Years' War. As a result, there were only British and Spanish colonies left in North America. The British would eventually take over the Spanish colonies in the south, too, and that's how the U.S. became part of the British Empire. But as time passed, the relationship between Britain and its American colonies started to deteriorate. The British started to put more and more taxes on the colonies, but they didn't allow them to have representation in the Parliament, which meant that the colonies had no voice and were forced to comply. This led to protests and boycotts, such as the Boston Tea Party. It was clear that things weren't going well. So King George III called for a meeting with the colonial leaders to try to resolve the conflicts. However, nothing came out of it, and when the king sent troops to arrest rebel leaders, the Revolutionary War began. The war lasted from 1775 to 1783, and at the end, the United States of America was born. Throughout the late 1700s and early 1800s, the U.S. expanded across the continent. Most of the expansion came at the expense of Native Americans who were pushed further and further west. But the U.S. also bought Louisiana from France and Florida from Spain. By 1860, the U.S. looked pretty much like it does today, except for Hawaii and Alaska, which were still to come. During the mid-1800s, the U.S. had a serious problem. It was split in two. The southern states wanted to keep slavery while the northern states wanted to abolish it. This led to a civil war from 1861 to 1865. In the end, the North won. Slavery was abolished and the U.S. was reunited, but it would never be the same again. After the Civil War, the U.S. started to grow rapidly. There was a massive wave of immigration and many new inventions were made during this period, such as the telephone, light bulb, and automobile. People moved to cities. Factories started to produce goods on a large scale, and the U.S. became an industrial power. Both world wars happened during this century, too, and although the U.S. wasn't directly involved in the First World War, it helped the Allies win it. Then in the Second World War, the U.S. played a massive role in defeating the Axis powers. After the Second World War, the U.S. was one of only 3 countries that had the atomic bomb, and although it never used it in warfare, this gave it massive influence on the world stage. The Soviet Union and the U.S. started to compete with each other. This competition led to an arms race, the space race, and the Cold War. The Cold War was a period of tension between the U.S. and the USSR. Although there were some proxy wars, neither side ever directly attacked each other. But this competition fueled innovation, and both sides made lots of scientific breakthroughs. Luckily, the competition didn't turn into a real war, but it ended when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. The U.S. didn't have any serious rivals anymore. The rest of the 1900s, the U.S. focused on improving its economy and quality of life for its citizens. It became the richest country in the world, and its people enjoyed high salaries and many benefits. So how did the U.S. become such a rich country? The answer is simple: innovation. Throughout the history of the U.S., there have been waves of innovation. When I say innovation, I don't mean only technology, but also business models, finance, marketing, organization of labor, and so on. Every year, thousands of startups are created in the U.S., and many of them go global. Big companies like Apple, Google, Facebook, and Amazon are constantly trying to improve their products and find new markets. And if you think this isn't true, just look around you. All the latest and greatest technology probably came from the U.S. or a U.S. subsidiary. Just think about all the smartphones, computers, apps, movies, series, books, and music that you consume. Chances are that a big chunk of it came from the U.S. That's why the U.S. is by far the most valuable consumer market in the world. Companies that want to be successful have to expand globally because there simply isn't enough demand in the U.S. to sustain hundreds of thousands of companies. If you want a proof of this, just look at China. It's the second largest economy in the world, but its domestic market is still not big enough for many companies to thrive. That's why Chinese companies are expanding to the U.S. and Europe. Another thing that helps the U.S. is its large pool of highly skilled workers. Universities in the U.S. are among the best in the world and attract students from all over the globe. The U.S. also has relatively few regulations compared to Europe. And although this has some downsides, one of its upsides is that it attracts entrepreneurs from all over the world who come to the U.S. to start their businesses. Today, the U.S. is facing some major challenges, such as the growing wealth gap, polarization, and foreign competition. If the U.S. wants to remain the world's leading superpower, it must find a way to overcome these challenges. If you enjoyed this video, here's another one that you can watch. I hope to see you there. Until next time.